Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling a really fascinating and dynamic period, toddler development.
Right, specifically that window between about 12 and 36 months.
Exactly. And we've got some great resources guiding us insights from the University of Pittsburgh's Office of Child Development, 0 to 3, Healthy Young Minds, Generation Mindful.
The Child Mind Institute, Raising Children Network, the CDC, and Brightwheel, too. Quite a comprehensive list.
Definitely. So our goal here for you listening is to map out what you can generally expect during these years.
Yeah, looking at how all those different areas, the physical, cognitive, language, social, emotional, they all knit together.
We want to distill the key stuff so you feel informed and can really appreciate this, well, amazing toddler journey.
And, it's really crucial to say upfront development isn't some rigid timetable.
Oh, absolutely. Every child has their own pace.
Hitting milestones earlier or later, usually totally fine. Doesn't necessarily predict anything long term.
Sometimes they might even seem to take a little step back with a skill. That happens.
It does. So think of this as a general guide, a map of typical progress. But individual paths will vary.
Okay, great framing. Shall we dive in? Maybe start with the physical side of things.
Sounds good. And what's really striking first off is just the sheer speed of physical change.
Yeah.
You see Keith popping through really quickly. Their movement skills just explode.
Right. They go from maybe just crawling well to pulling up, cruising along furniture.
Exactly. And figuring out how to get back down again, which is a skill in itself.
Yeah, yes. And doing things like passing toys hand to hand, sitting in those little toddler chairs.
The key thing here, I think, is realizing this isn't just about getting around. This newfound mobility fundamentally changes how they interact with everything.
How they learn about the world.
Precisely. It directly fuels their cognitive development.
That makes sense. And then within that time frame, those finer motor skills start popping up too.
Between, say, 12 and 24 months, you might see them grabbing crayons, often with their whole arm, really going for it.
Oh, yeah, the whole arm coloring phase. And trying to feed themselves, right? Spoons, cups, very messy.
Very messy, yes. That's part of the process. And stacking maybe 2 to 4 blocks, starting to pull off socks or hats.
Okay, and then moving towards that 2 to 3 year mark, 24 to 36 months.
Yeah, so by then, most baby teeth are usually in, even some molars. Their running gets smoother, fewer falls.
They might start walking backward or tackling stairs.
Often, yeah. Walking upstairs 1 foot per step, usually without needing to hold on. Drinking well from a cup, maybe using a straw.
Self-feeding gets a bit better.
A bit tidier, usually with a spoon. And you might see the very first signs of interest in toilet training. Lots of accidents still, of course.
Of course. And maybe washing hands, getting better with a cup, unzipping things.
Right. Better grip on pencils or crayons, maybe stacking 4, 5, 6 blocks.
Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting, connecting this physical stuff to everything else.
Absolutely.
Like all that running and jumping, it's obviously great for their gross motor skills, right? Building strength and coordination.
For sure. But it's also, as some of the resources point out, crucial for their learning. That physical exploration lets them understand concepts, test things out.
It literally opens up their world for cognitive discovery.
Exactly. And think about the fine motor skills, stacking blocks, scribbling.
Yeah.
That's not just playing. It's building problem-solving skills, spatial awareness.
Ah, right. Like figuring out how the blocks fit together.
Precisely. And those scribbles, that's the very beginning of pre-writing skills. So there's a direct link to language development starting right there.
Wow, it really is all connected. Okay, so let's shift focus a bit. What about cognitive development during this time? What leaps are happening inside their heads?
Well, in that first year, say 12 to 24 months, a lot is focused on understanding their immediate world.
Like peekaboo or finding hidden toys.
Yes. They love those hidden object games. And looking at picture books, starting to point out things they recognize.
And pretend play starts then too, doesn't it? Using a block as a phone or something?
Exactly. Understanding the purpose of everyday objects and using them in pretend ways. They're also starting to label things, recognize shapes, try things out to solve simple problems. Lots of trial and error.
So that pretend play, using one thing to represent another, that's actually a huge cognitive step, isn't it?
It's massive. It's symbolic thinking in action, foundational for language, for problem solving. It shows their mind is working in a new, more abstract way.
Okay, and as they get older, say 24 to 36 months?
Their cognitive world just expands. That symbolic play gets much more complex. A cardboard tube isn't just a tube, it's a telescope, an airplane.
Yeah, their imagination really takes flight.
It does, and they start sorting things, putting all the cars together, all the animals together.
Categorizing.
Right. They can often play by themselves for longer stretches, exploring cause and effect. If I push this, that falls over.
And understanding object permanence gets more solid, like knowing someone still exists even when they leave the room.
Yes, they might comment on someone being gone. And interestingly, they might start being able to tell you where something hurts, pointing to their tummy or their head.
That's a big step in self-awareness.
It is. And connecting this back that pretend play we keep mentioning, it's not just fun,
Right, you said it builds cognitive skills.
like imagination, planning, problem solving. But it's also huge for language as they narrate their play, and for social skills as they might start playing roles alongside others.
Taking on roles, developing stories. Yeah, I see that. It's all woven together. Okay, what about language itself? Huge changes there too, I imagine.
Oh, absolutely massive. Between 12 and 24 months, you often see them start with single words that stand for a whole idea, like up, meaning pick me up.
Yeah. And then moving to those little two-word sentences. More juice. Daddy, go.
Exactly. And they start following simple directions, get your shoes, and paying more attention when you talk, pointing to body parts, nose, eyes, mouth.
How many words are we talking about, roughly?
Spoken words, maybe 25 to 50 understandable ones around that age, but they understand way more, maybe 50 or even more common words. They also start picking up on please and thank you, if prompted, and the basic back and forth of talking.
And then bam, that 24 to 36-month period hits.
It's often called the language explosion for a reason. They really start enjoying interactive reading, pointing, naming things, helping turn pages.
They figure out language gets them things.
Yes, it's a tool. They can usually name lots of familiar objects, toys. Vocabulary jumps hugely from maybe 50 words up to 200, 300, sometimes more. They're learning new words incredibly fast.
And still understanding more than they can say.
Definitely. Which can be a source of frustration sometimes, you know? They know the word in their head but can't quite get it out, which might lead to some stuttering or just getting upset.
Makes sense. And longer sentences start appearing, using I and me.
Yes, putting more words together, maybe 3 or 4 words, using pronouns like I and me. And the endless questions start, why? What's that?
Yes. The why phase. So how can parents or caregivers support this incredible language growth?
There are lots of simple, powerful things, just mimicking their sounds, tuning into their gestures and nonverbal cues.
Building on what they say. So if they say truck, you say, yes, a big red truck.
Exactly, expanding on it, narrating what you're doing, describing things around them, trying to respond positively to all their attempts to communicate, even if it's just a point or a grunt.
Keeping the conversation going, that turn-taking.
Labeling objects, praising their efforts, specifically good talking, but also trying not to constantly test them, like, what's this? What's that?
Right, keep it natural. And it's clear this isn't just about words, is it? Language connects to thinking.
Deeply. That symbolic thought we talked about underpins language. You need the concept before you can label it.
And it connects to their social and emotional world, too.
Hugely. It gives them the tools to express feelings, to understand others, to navigate social situations, which leads us nicely into that whole social-emotional realm.
Okay, so what's happening there between 12 and 24 months?
You often see that early stranger anxiety lessen a bit. They might be more open to new faces.
They might play by themselves for short bursts, show affection.
Yes, hugs and kisses for caregivers. And you see that parallel play starting.
Yes, playing alongside other kids, but not really with them yet.
Exactly. They're aware of each other, maybe mimicking, but not truly interacting or sharing yet.
And that famous toddler independence starts kicking in, the me-do-it stage.
Definitely. Wanting to do things themselves.
Yeah.
Which can also lead to tantrums.
Yeah.
Especially when tired or hungry.
Right, and they get really curious about everything, sometimes testing limits.
Yes, exploring their world can mean exploring boundaries too. Safety becomes a big focus.
Okay, so that's 12, 24 months. What about 24, 36 months, socially and emotionally?
This is where you start to see the first glimmers of empathy. Understanding that others have feelings and maybe even trying to comfort someone who's sad.
That's a huge milestone, but the tantrums might still be happening, maybe even aggression sometimes.
Yes, because their language skills are still catching up to their big feelings and desires. Waiting turns, sharing's still really hard.
They might start helping with little jobs around the house.
Could be, yeah. Simple chores. They become much more aware of caregiver approval or disapproval. Still very protective of their toys, though sharing doesn't come naturally yet.
Difficulty choosing between options. Lots of no.
Very common. The no phase is strong, and they often really thrive on routines knowing what comes next. Provides security.
And this is also when that interactive play starts to emerge more, right? Actually playing with peers.
It is building on that parallel play, and the pretend play really blossoms here, which, as we said, fuels language, thinking, and social skills.
But conflict resolution is still tricky.
Oh, definitely. They might snatch toys, struggle to compromise. That firm no is still a go-to strategy.
So supporting them through all this, what helps?
Helping them name their feelings is huge. You seem really frustrated right now.
Labeling emotions.
Yes. And providing opportunities for them to play with other kids. Maybe with some gentle guidance on sharing or taking turns. Letting them lead the play sometimes is important too.
Supporting their problem solving, helping them work through conflicts instead of just swooping in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Using language yourself to describe feelings, explaining why there are limits. We need to hold hands because the road is busy.
That makes sense. And okay, the T word, tantrums. They feel huge, but they're normal.
Very normal. It's often their only way to communicate overwhelming feelings or unmet needs when they lack the language or impulse control.
So prevention strategies. Anything parents can do.
Trying not to take the behavior personally helps. Choosing your battles, does this really matter right now? Giving warnings before transitions, 5 more minutes of playing, then bath time. Offering simple choices can sometimes head things off.
Like, do you want the red cup or the blue cup?
Exactly. Giving them a little bit of control.
And when the tantrum hits anyway.
The key is trying to stay calm yourself. Easier said than done, I know.
For sure.
Acknowledge their feeling. I see you're really angry. But hold the limit if it's a safety or important boundary issue.
So validate the feeling, but not necessarily the behavior.
Right. Then offer connection, a hug, just being nearby. Maybe offer an acceptable alternative way to express that anger later. It's okay to stomp your feet when you're mad.
Modeling taking a break yourself when you're overwhelmed can be powerful too.
Absolutely. Showing them coping strategies.
Wow. Okay, so seeing how physical, cognitive, language, social, emotional, it's all connected.
It really is. Which brings us neatly to this idea of the whole child approach.
Right. What's the core idea there?
It's basically saying we need to look beyond just, say, academic skills. It's
Right.
about supporting all parts of the child, their thinking skills, sure, but also their identity, their mental health, their social skills, their emotional well-being.
Nurturing the complete person, not just the student part.
Exactly. It's a holistic view.
And there were 5 key elements mentioned.
Yeah,
Health.
right. Healthy, physically, mentally, socially, emotionally. Safe, feeling secure, both physically and emotionally.
Engaged. Supported. Challenged.
Yes. Engaged means actively involved in learning. Supported means getting the individual attention and help they need. And challenged is about encouraging them to reach their potential, stretching them a bit.
Why is this approach considered so important? What are the benefits?
Well, the thinking is it leads to better learning outcomes overall. But more than that, it helps buffer kids against stress or trauma by building those crucial social-emotional skills.
So it builds resilience.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it fosters things like good interpersonal skills, creativity, setting goals, confidence, empathy, curiosity, basically contributing to overall well-being and future success.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, this has been incredibly insightful. But, for parents listening, navigating all this, when should they maybe seek some professional advice if they have concerns?
That's a really important question. The general guidance is, if a toddler isn't meeting a majority of the milestones for their age range, within a reasonable time after that stage typically ends.
Okay, so not just one or two things, but a broader pattern.
Right. Or if you see a sudden stop in progress, like they were consistently gaining new skills, and then for several weeks, that just stalls completely.
That could be a flag.
They could be worth checking out.
And the first step would be
Talk to their pediatrician or healthcare provider. They're the best starting point.
they can assess things properly, see if there's a delay, and suggest next steps.
Exactly. And the key message from pretty much all the sources is that early intervention makes a huge difference if there is a delay. Getting support sooner rather than later leads to much better outcomes.
That's really good to know. Well, we certainly covered a lot of ground today, thinking about just how much changes for toddlers between 1 and 3. It's kind of mind-blowing.
It really is, across every single area. Physical, cognitive, language, social, emotional. The growth is just exponential.
And just to reiterate one last time, we've talked about typical patterns.
Every child's journey is unique. That variation is completely normal and expected.
Absolutely. So maybe a final thought for you listening. As you watch the toddlers in your own life, really try to notice those connections we've been talking about.
Yeah. How does their physical confidence, maybe climbing something new, seem to link to their problem solving? How does learning a new word suddenly change how they interact with their friends or express frustration?
It's this incredible dynamic dance of development. Observing those connections, it just gives you an even deeper appreciation for the complexity and honestly the sheer wonder of these early years.